Good evening, everybody. What is worse than two politicians arguing back and forth all day long on television? The harmful effects that disposable and single-use plastics pose on not only us, but our environment and the animals that surround us. My name is Noah, and I'm here to tell you more about it. And hopefully by the end of this speech, you will have a newfound sense as to just how bad disposable and single-use plastics are. Did you know that according to the EPA, 26.8 million tons of plastic waste entered into U.S.-owned landfills in 2017 alone? That's 53 billion pounds of plastic waste in 1 year in one country. Have you ever thought to yourself, what happens to all of this single-use and disposable plastics after it leaves my hands? I know I've personally had this question cross my mind whenever I'm outdoors mountain biking, which is one of my favorite pastimes. I see plastic everywhere, and I think, what happens to it all whenever I leave for the day? Well, as we all know, thanks to TikTok and Instagram, disposable single-use plastics such as straws are terrible for sea turtles. But who else are they bad for? They're bad for other animals, they're bad for us as humans, and they're bad for the earth, which inhabits these animals and us humans. So to begin, let's take a look at how single-use and disposable plastics deteriorate our earth, starting with global warming. According to the CIEL, which is the Center for International Environmental Law, in 2019 alone, the production and incineration of plastic materials caused for over 850 million metric tons of methane and greenhouse gases to seep into our atmosphere, and by 2050, that number is estimated to have tripled, thus taking up 13% of our Earth's total carbon budget. Additionally, according to the World Wildlife Foundation, 8 million tons of plastic waste enter our Earth's oceanways each and every year. But the problem does not end there. These plastics continue to break down once in the oceanways, releasing additional greenhouse gases into the atmosphere and into the waterways. But surely throwing a plastic straw into the ocean doesn't cause global warming, does it? Well, ultimately it begins in the manufacturing process. Miles on top of miles of pipeline are used in the United States alone for the extraction of fossil fuels used in the production of certain plastic materials. Little known fact is that a lot of land surrounding these pipelines needs to be blocked off and cleared as well as a safety precaution surrounding these pipelines. This equates to about 20 million acres of U.S. soil to have been cleared, consequently producing 1.7 billion tons of carbon dioxide to be released into our atmosphere. But what does any of this have to do with animals? Well, being that single-use and disposable plastics is one of the biggest dangers to today's marine and land animals alike, seeing that millions are killed each and every year from it. One way that it kills them is, let's look at seabirds. Seabirds, according to Laura Parker from National Geographic, almost all seabirds have been observed to consume plastic materials as if it was their own food. And once this plastic gets into their stomachs, they have an inability to digest it, so they always feel full. They don't eat because they always feel full. This ultimately leads to their untimely death due to an unintentional self-starvation. Another huge change caused by single-use plastics is the confirmed liver and cell damage to reproductive systems of certain species. Oysters, being one of the heaviest hit by it, have been observed to now produce fewer eggs, ultimately releasing in fewer babies, messing up an entire food chain after they've been exposed to certain plastic chemicals. Plastic debris also allows travel for animals. National Geographic also states that an unmeasurable amount of invasive species, both bacteria and animals, hitch free rides each and every year from your and my trash, going country to country, continent to continent, destroying entire ecosystems. But what's another way that ecosystems can be entirely destroyed by plastic waste? Sewage, of course. But how does sewage mess up an entire ecosystem? Well, a lot of sewage is ultimately reconstituted and reclaimed and turned into compost, fertilizer, and it's spread into the lawns of me, you, and our neighbors, and gets into our vegetation and is eaten by local wildlife. But what does that have to do with us? It affects animals, it affects global warming. What's that have to do with us? Well, there's many ways that plastic can actually enter into the bodies of both you and me, One of the most popular ways is, of course, eating animals and plants that have been contaminated by plastic waste. And the packaging that touches certain meats and cheeses also can seep chemicals from the plastic packaging into the materials, such as steaks, ground beefs, and cheeses, and other supermarket foods. Additionally, once disposable plastics finally do break down, they love to release BPA. And a study performed by the United States Department of Agriculture showed that 93% of participants had measurable amounts of BPA within their urine. These toxic chemicals love to leach onto you, blood, and tissue, and are linked to certain cancers, birth defects, and other disorders and diseases. These toxic chemicals also pollute waterways that me and you use to clean sensitive materials with, bathe in, and even drink. A lot of people like to resort to using water filters to try and get out some of these microplastics, but the majority of water filters do not take out the majority of microplastics, and they still enter your body. So with all this plastic use, production, and waste on the rise, new dangers are also on the rise. So it is very, very important to realize just how detrimental single-use and disposable plastic is to not only us, but to animals and to our entire earth. Hopefully by now I've brought forth some type of new attention and urgency into just how bad plastic usage can harm everybody and everything. And I'd like you to take home at least one small change today, and one small change can make a huge difference. What I mean by that is the average American family takes home about 1,500 plastic bags each and every year. So next time you're at the grocery store getting your groceries, think about switching from a plastic bag to a reusable bag and saving those turtles.